Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to cover 6 bits of advice for QSs when you're starting out. None of this is textbook or university style stuff, it's all stuff that I've learned along the way and bits of advice that I wish I'd have got when I was starting out. So let's jump straight into it. Number 1, bulk book meetings. Now what I mean by this is that when you're starting out, you're obviously a novice and you haven't got much experience behind you, so kind of everything is brand new to you. So what I suggest you do, and this is something that I did loads and loads in the beginning of my career, is that when you're meeting new subcontractors or suppliers, book the same subcontractor or supplier, i.e. the same trade or same type of supplier, back to back in a meeting. So in one day you might have the same meeting every hour and a half with different suppliers. And what will happen is that obviously in the first meeting, the supplier or subcontractor is probably going to talk at you for 95% of the time, because obviously you don't know that much and you're only talking a small bit, basically picking their brains, asking different questions. But by the second, third and fourth meeting that day, you've obviously picked up a ton of knowledge as you've been going through the meetings, and it's going to help you in so many different ways. It's going to help you obviously build your specification up. Obviously your knowledge is going to grow throughout the day. And obviously it means that when you're getting prices, they're going to be much more accurate because you've had this whole day of learning about one specific thing. So I remember using this when I was doing resin bonded driveways for the first time. I think we had about a kilometre driveway in this gold resin. Never used it before, and this is something that I did. And you've got to remember, in construction, every project, it doesn't matter how experienced you get, there's always going to be one or two or maybe more things that are brand new to this project you haven't done before. So this tactic is something that I use still today in ultimately getting more knowledgeable. And like I said, I used it with this gold resin driveway, hadn't used it before, so I just basically booked out maybe one subcontractor every couple of hours, and by the end of the day I can remember the last subcontractor saying to me, wow, you know so much about this, but it was purely because I booked people back to back. Now just as a little tip on top of this, I wouldn't book people so close to each other that they're going to be walking past each other in the car park. I just don't think that's the right way of going about things. But in actually booking meetings back to back and building your knowledge super quick, and ultimately making sure you get specification right, I think this is such a good tip. Number 2, psychology. Now what I mean by this is, you've obviously heard me in previous videos say about trusting your gut, because what your gut is ultimately every bit of information that you have, and it's making a split decision. So actually, while you might think, oh, you've been being hasty in making a decision, no you haven't. It's actually everything that you've learned is helping you shape and make that decision. Now what I mean by using psychology in construction or being a QS is that obviously you're meeting so many different personalities. It's one of probably the biggest jobs out there, where you're meeting people all the time. They're always different and diverse personalities. Now, not to hate on everyone in the industry, but one thing you'll see in construction, which is quite common, is there's quite a lot of Teflon characters, which basically means that they're quite happy to say something to you verbally, and then the minute that you actually rely on that information, it's like, I never said that, there's nothing in writing, etc. So one of the things that I did when I was starting out is that where you're meeting, say, 3 to 5 subcontractors or suppliers per trade when you're getting quotes, is I'd kind of build up like a library of people in my mind, which is that if people started to have similar characteristics to each other, I'd kind of like log them against that person and think, well, I've experienced that. And you've heard me in other videos saying that a lot of subcontractors use similar tactics, emotional tactics, when they're actually trying to win the work. So you can kind of pigeonhole people together to go, oh, they're quite similar. And that can be used in a positive way as well. If you had a really good experience with a subcontractor or supplier, obviously you meet someone with similar characteristics, it's just a really, really good way of actually logging people, particularly earlier on in your career where you don't have a history of working with those people. And just to use it in a real life situation, obviously if someone's being a pain in the backside when they're tendering for a project and you're going backwards and forwards with them, then you know, like, trust your gut, that when you get to actually giving them the contract, that they're going to be as big a pain in the backside as they were when you were going through that process. So just trust your gut, obviously build psychology, use psychology, trust yourself in terms of whether you think people are being truthful or not, because that's a big part of how you're going to help learn in the beginning. And it's also a big way of knowing who the right subcontractors are to write questions, because obviously I think it's super important, particularly when you're beginning, is to obviously ask a lot of the subcontractors and suppliers questions to build your knowledge. But obviously you want to be asking the ones that are good-hearted and ultimately want you to learn as well, rather than the people that obviously are a bit Teflon and ultimately all they care about is winning the job, obviously getting paid, etc. So I just think it's a really good tip when you're starting out. Number 3, learn about industries rather than price bashing. So obviously rule 1 of being a QS, or the most basic form of negotiating, is that I've got one quote in for 10 grand and one quote in for 9 grand. So when you're speaking to the 10 grand guy who's quoted, you're saying to them, well, I've got a much cheaper quote, so I won't be going with you. And you're just using the quotes backwards and forwards to ultimately drive the price down. Now, as I said, this is like level 1, it's the most basic way of negotiating. But really, if you want to understand how to negotiate best, you need to start to understand the industries on the other side of that. So if you're talking to a tiler or any type of profession or subcontractor, you must start to learn to understand their industry. How do they make their money? How do they build up their quotes? Because if you understand that side of things, you can obviously negotiate way, way better than you can by just looking at 2 pieces of paper and throwing them against each other. Because to give you an example of where that won't work is that using bathrooms and sanitary ware as an example. So say you've written a specification where you've got Duravit sanitary ware and you're going out to different merchants to get different prices back. Now, if you haven't registered that site with Duravit, so what that means is that if you've got a site, I don't know, let's just say it's in London, say it's Greenwich, and you've got that site and it might be 300 units, and you put a spec down as Duravit, but you haven't spoken to Duravit to say, this is your site, you're going to be speccing their items, then what happens is that you'll go out to say 3 or 4 different suppliers for that bathroom, and the first person you speak to, if you haven't registered that site, they'll jump to Duravit and go, hey Duravit, I've got this site, it's 300 units, it's me that's brought you this site. And what Duravit will do is give them preferential rates. So ultimately, now going back to where you're talking to say 3 to 5 suppliers of that bathroom, is that the other like 3 or 4 in there cannot compete with that first person because they've got better rates. So you need to make sure that you understand that in the first instance, because otherwise you're just wasting your time, because you're obviously going backwards and forwards saying, yeah, but I've got this better price. And the others just can't touch it because Duravit may have given them 5, 10, 15% better rates than what the others have got. So learning industries is just really, really important. And a lot of industries are like what I just explained in terms of that exact example, but other industries have their own little sort of special quirks. You need to learn that and obviously take an interest in how the different industries and different subcontractors and suppliers work. Number 4, understand logistics. So this is basically saying that when you're starting out, obviously you're probably going to have a more senior QS that you'll be learning from. But once you sort of get to grips with the basics, I think you should then start to obviously spend quite a bit of time with the PM or the site manager, just to understand some basic logistics of how things go together. Because you've heard me say in other videos that one of the biggest things that can go wrong for estimators, which you probably will get involved in some vein or another during your career, which is obviously you'll be bidding for new jobs, is that a lot of estimators obviously copy and paste information or prices from one job to another. So obviously they'll take the meterage rate from one site and copy and paste it over to another. But obviously the biggest thing that can go wrong with that is logistics, which is how is it going to come together. So just like basic things that can go wrong is that maybe you've taken it from a 2-story price and obviously the next site you're going to is 10 stories, and obviously getting the materials into those 2 different areas are completely different prices that can have a big impact. So if you start to spend time with the project manager or site manager and just understand basics of what can implicate prices, i.e. you might need a crane on another site, then you will be so much better off and you'll probably progress so much quicker in your career just by understanding those basic things. Now, do not sort of take on too much here. Don't essentially try and become the project manager or become the site manager. It's just that getting yourself to the point where you know to ask questions. So it might be when you're looking at another job, you actually start to realize, hold on, here's the anomalies between this job and this job, and you can start to write a load of questions next to the price that you're putting together, basically to maybe go and take to a project director or a project manager to have that conversation to go, here's some anomalies that I've used these figures from this job, but here's some things that I've noticed that are different. Will they have price implications? And that just means that you flagged it, and that's the most important thing here, is you do not have to become a project manager. It's just that you understanding logistics and differences between sites is so important to actually making sure you're getting the right price. Number 5, understand that subbies and suppliers want to make money too. So what I mean by this is that so many people sort of big corporate companies kind of train QSs and treat it like a game, which is that they kind of have this like knocking mentality, which is that they're always looking for excuses not to pay people. And I just think this is such a wrong way of looking at things. I've always had the mentality that all businesses are the same. They're there to obviously to try and make money, and obviously they're trying to put food on the table for their families. So having this mentality of obviously trying to bash people or make excuses for not paying people just isn't the right way of going about things. And some of you might be sitting there going, that's not true, and others will be going, yep, that's exactly how I got taught. But what I'm trying to get across here is that if you actually have some humility and acknowledge the subcontractors that you want them to make money as well, then I'm telling you that you will get a much better price from Subbies going forward. It may not be the first job that you get it from, but basically when I start every job, I will say in front of Subbies one-on-one and also in a group in terms of maybe 4 or 5 is that I want them to make money. They're not going to make huge amounts of profit from me because I want competitive prices, but what you will get is me saying that I want you to make money. And ultimately, if everybody works together, and that's what I'm trying to say, I'll say it in a room of maybe 5 to 10 subcontractors together, is that if we all work together and get this done as quickly as possible, ultimately you will make more money. And I'll say something along the lines of that myself and obviously the company that I'm working for are very good at making decisions quickly, which is something that again goes wrong with pricing, is that a lot of companies are terrible at making decisions, which is that sometimes say from the bottom, maybe that the assistant QS trying to get a decision to obviously place an order has to go all the way up the food chain to say the managing director and all the way back down again. That can take ages, and ultimately that can slow down progress on site and obviously cost people money. So what you'll find is that basically in construction is that prices tend to be based on the worst clients or the worst customers rather than the best customers, which means that if they've got a bad job where essentially a lot of delays have happened and they're not making money, obviously a lot of subcontractors will start to price on that basis, which is that every job's going to go that way because they can't obviously afford to keep losing money on every job. So they'll price that way. But obviously if you can start to build a reputation where you don't have that, and you're very quick at making decisions, and obviously you have this collaborative approach and obviously advocate that when you're speaking, you'll start to build a reputation that actually your jobs are different than what the rest of the jobs are, and you'll get better prices. So don't buy into the hype of things like buying power. Remember that every single deal that's negotiated is ultimately negotiated between 2 people, and obviously if you can give that confidence and comfort that you want them to make money as well, and obviously you're very good at decision making, etc., then you will get very good prices. Number 6, value is perceived. Now this is actually something that I learned at university, so it kind of goes against the intro, but what I mean by this is that you have to understand that when you're a QS, sometimes you can get a little bit too absorbed in your spreadsheets, which is that you're just looking at how one number compares to another, rather than actually looking beyond that and actually what value are you getting out. So using this in a client perspective, or maybe if you're working with your sales and marketing team, is that they may be looking at this interior door that they've picked out and it's like £500 a door, but your budget's only got £100 a door, and you're like a basic QS or basic level QS would say, we don't have a budget, I'm not interested, won't even explore any options on this. But if you want to progress further in your career, because obviously remember they're working for the same company as you, so if you go that extra mile, they're the ones that are going to be singing your praises maybe to the commercial director, etc. So what you should be doing is looking at that door and thinking, okay, I definitely can't get that door for within the budget, but let's look at the style of the door and let's rate this door out of 10 maybe on the looks department. So that door might be visually 8 out of 10, and you can go looking for maybe not the same door as I said, but you can look at it and go, hold on, I found a door here that I think is probably about a 7 out of 10 in terms of visuals, but actually it's about £150 a door, so it's still over budget but much closer to the budget. And you can go back to the sales and marketing team and say, look, I found this, it's kind of in the same theme as what you're looking at, I still think it's very good looking door, blah blah, here's the price difference, what do you think? And if they love it, ultimately what you'll find in especially development sectors is that what will happen is the sales and marketing team can obviously cover that difference. So they'll cover the £50 per extra per door, or you might be able to obviously make savings elsewhere. It might be that you can make some savings on the kitchens, obviously cover the price differences. But that all help you go a long way in your career. And it's not also in terms of just in like products, it also can be in consultants. So using engineers as an example, if you start to look at value rather than just prices that you're getting back, you might have an engineer that comes back with a quote that's say 10 grand more than everybody else, but they're making a suggestion to you in meetings saying, look, I really think if we have a redesign here, this could be a big saving to you. And you start to look into it and think, holy crap, like this could save us 200 grand on this project. Now, don't always take people as gospel. Obviously, a lot of people use this as a tactic in obviously tendering for work. But what you should be doing is taking that bit of advice and bouncing off of other engineers, saying, look, I've had this theory come across, what do you think? And ultimately, it may be a goer. Now, what I think you should do with this bit of information is not obviously steal it from them and start to give out to other engineers and obviously accept the lower quote with their idea. What you should be doing is acknowledging that this engineer has obviously looked into this project in way more detail than the other, so it's obviously very passionate about winning this work. So what you should be doing is going back to them saying, look, this is a fantastic idea, really, really interested in it, and you're the only person that's come back with this. Your prices are a bit far apart, but obviously our preference would be to give you this work because of obviously the potential saving that could be on board with obviously picking you. So what you're trying to do is maybe they won't come down to that price, but you might be able to bridge the gap. And I think it's so important, and I'm sure loads of people will advocate this, is that construction is all about relationships. And obviously the more relationships you can build, the more people you can obviously bounce ideas off in the future. So there you have it. There's 6 tips that have massively helped me out and sort of ones I've honed as I've gone through my career. Now, if you've got any more comments or if you think I've missed anything, obviously whack them down in the comment section below. Massively helps everybody obviously learn more quickly. If you did get some value from the video, please smash the thumbs up button. It massively helps us with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.